GPT. It sounds too AI, so you have to rewrite everything.
He tries to go back home, he tries to go back to what he was, and he can't do that anymore. Carl Jung talked about this phenomenon, he described as retrogressive restoration of the persona. And so it's a complicated idea, but basically what it means is that sometimes you take a leap forward and you learn some things, but you can't catalyze a new identity, so you try to go back and hide in your old identity. And that actually doesn't work because, well, things have changed and you've learned something and that isn't who you are anymore. And so it's like you have to cut parts of yourself off in a destructive manner to fit back into the person that you were. Now what happens here is that Pinocchio escapes from this tyrannical situation and undergoes this descent into chaos, but he tries to go back home, he tries to go back to what he was, and he can't do that anymore. His father isn't at home anymore. And so when he goes home, he finds that there's no home there. Now, this happens to people sometimes, and that's got to be an unpleasant place to be. That's got to be an unpleasant place to be.
I thought this was a dream come true for us.
It's your dream. You can't force a dream onto someone else, Dad.
Yes, I can. I can force a dream on you.
Why are you yelling?
Because it's a good dream.
One of the things that I've suggested to my clients and to other people sometimes is that here's a weird little exercise that you can undertake, a little thought experiment. So you have your parents, and of course your parents have friends who are about their age, and maybe some of them are people you only know peripherally. And I might ask you, well, do you care more about what your parents think than you care about what these peripheral people who know your parents think? And then the answer to that is, well, of course. And then the question that arises out of that is, why? I mean, for someone else, your parents are the peripheral people, and their parents are central. Like, why is it logical that you have friends who are about their age, and maybe some of them are people you only know peripherally? And I might ask you, well, do you care more about what your parents think than you care about what these peripheral people who know your parents think? And then the answer to that is, well, of course. And then the question that arises out of that is, why? I mean, for someone else, your parents are the peripheral people, and their parents are central. Like, why is it logical that your parents' opinion makes any more difference to you than the opinion of some randomly selected people who are approximately that age? Why is it the case that you would consider that they would know more than someone else? I mean, I know they know you better, and fair enough, but that's not the point. And then another point there is that to the degree that your parents' opinion about you matters more than some randomly selected people of approximately the same age, Jung would say, well, you haven't exactly separated out the God image from your parents, and so you're still under that combination. It's like, it's a complicated thing to talk about, but Freud said, for example, that no one could be a man unless his father had died. And Jung said, yes, but that death can take place symbolically. Okay, so there's that part of the idea. And then another part of the idea is, one of the times in your life when you actually realize that you're an individual is when you'll go and ask your parents something and you'll realize they actually don't know any more about what you should do than you do. And that sucks. And that's partly why people are often willing to maintain a tyrant-slave relationship with their father. It's like, on the one hand, you have to be inferior in a relationship like that. You know, you've always got the judge watching you. But on the other hand, there's always someone who knows what to do. There's always someone standing between you and the unknown that you can go ask, what should I do? Well, at some point, you'll realize that the reason you can't ask that anymore is because they actually don't know any more than you do. And then that's a pain, like that is a symbolic death. And that's also when you establish a more individual relationship with your parents. It's at that point that you could conceivably start taking care of them instead of the reverse. And that's a time that should come. But you have to let that image of perfection go, and that exposes you.
I enjoyed that. Welcome to another episode of this. You know how I go. But we're going to go ahead and get the motivation started for today. Today we are, discovering our personality. We're going to look at some different personality stuff to help us stay mindful about who we are on this Monday. So, motivation. Let's get this motivation, y'all. I ain't even updated on Twitch. Hold on. Let's get some motivation for our brothers out there.
Responsible for other people. And part of that is taking accountability.
You are a man. Stand up and be a man. Make the hard decisions, make the sacrifices, make the unpopular decisions, and become comfortable in your own skin.
Yes, sir.
And if you are not a person that you are comfortable being alone with, that is the one person in this universe that you have full power, full right, and full responsibility to change.
Like, when do you become a man? You become a man when you become responsible for other people. And part of that is taking accountability. Yep. I grew up in a culture that told me going to war made you a man. Going to prison and coming back makes you a man. Making $1 million makes you a man, you know, and it doesn't.
Who teaches you to be a man? We all have these ladders of battles, roads we have to walk in our given lives. Be you famous or whoever's out there listening, we all have our individual challenges. It's cliche, money don't make it better. It don't. Fame just magnifies the problems and the opportunities. I never looked at things as problems. I look at them as opportunities. Maybe that's something I can say. You know, someone, well, she did this, and well, what an opportunity you have. Yeah, well, the world, you know, because they said this and CNN said that. Yeah, well, what an opportunity you have to make a difference. Because you never know who's watching.
Winners fail 1,000,000 times. What makes them a winner is that they believe in it, they're headstrong. Nothing's gonna stop them. The spectators have tried it and failed it and remain sitting down. They don't get up anymore because they don't believe it enough. The naysayers' disbelief overrides their ability, potential, and mental capacity that they can be more than that.
Why is that? Why do people assume that tomorrow is waiting for them? Why do people think that sun owes them something? Why do people think that the idea of having more time is the best time to have? You don't have a lot of time, ladies and gentlemen. All you got is what you have. And what you have is what you need. And what you need is to get up and be about your business. Because life is just that. It's business. So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna lay around and wait for your opportunities to pass you by?
Arm yourself with words. Be precise in your language. Right? Say what you mean. Read great men and great women. Make yourself literate. Get your tongue in order. Get it under your own control. Get rid of the ums and the likes and the you knows and the pauses. And get rid of everything you say that you only say to impress other people. and just see if you can say what you believe to be true.
There's sometimes you could be in a meeting and you could be the smartest guy in the room and you don't want to let anybody know that. Let everybody talk, let everybody think they're smarter than you, but you really know what's going on. There's other times when you're in the room, you could be the least smartest guy in the room, but you got to make them think that you're smarter than them. And if you can master that technique, then you can get just about anything you want in any negotiation. I have found out to be true. Let people talk first. Try to get as much out of them as you possibly can. And then you can kind of figure it out. Like with Gotti, a couple of times I had to sit down with him. I knew that he could never believe that I was winning. So in the midst of the argument, I had to figure out what he really wanted and how I can get what I want, letting him think that he got what he wanted. It's all about how you carry yourself.
In the warrior arsenal,
that he could never believe that I was winning. So in the midst of the argument, I had to figure out what he really wanted and how I can get what I want, letting him think that he got what he wanted. It's all about how you carry yourself.
In the warrior arsenal, we have different tools. We have physical tools like talent, mobility, strength, coordination, techniques, leverage, angles, timing. But if you're talking about mind, we have different tools: visualization, emotional control. In the spiritual side, we have hope, we have faith, we have patience. Those elements, they give you a chance of letting the situation cook in a slow burn and see how it goes. Because if you're impatient, if you don't have the hope, if you're not believing in yourself, but if you faith, you're gonna find the light, you're gonna find the hole, you have the hope, things gonna do well. So you become smoother even in the bumpy rides. So I start to feel like my growth was depending on this growth, not only physical, not only mental, but also spiritual.
I think one of the things that people struggle with is actually being very real with themselves. The difference between being, the difference between understanding who you are versus who you wish you were. And I think that's something that I'm always very fascinated by when I have a meeting like this. Like, what kind of read do you have on yourself? And how, I think I would struggle a lot if I didn't really genuinely know who I was. And then once you know who you are, you get more comfortable with what you're up to.
Are you gonna let success sit around and wait for you? You believe that success is your best friend. Success doesn't care about you if you don't care about success. You know why? Because success has already made up its mind. It is going in the direction that it needs to go. It is hunting for the one that wants it the most. But you're not doing the hunting. You're sitting around waiting. You become something else less of yourself because you don't believe that you have the potential and the capability to be the best of yourself. So why? You just sit back and you wait for somebody to pat you on the shoulder and say it's okay. At least you gave it your best. Your best ain't good enough. Your best don't work. You need to go beyond your best. You need to go beyond the level. You need to let the world know that you exist. You need to let the world know that you made different. You're built different. You're stronger. You're more passionate. You believe in yourself. When the rest of the world shut you down, you woke up the next day and you said, I got this, I do this, I breathe this, I am this. You can't stop me.
Just in your life.
Oh, come on, commercials.
Be an agent for good. It's kind of like people say, I support the troops. I support the troops. What do you do for the troops? Do you send them care packages? No. Do you walk up to them when you see them in a restaurant, in the airport in uniform, and do you stick your hand out and say, thank you for your service? No, I don't do anything, but I support the troops. No, that just means you're not against the troops. Right. And going through life, become a good man or woman. Second, be a dangerous man. Now, being dangerous is not being a threat. They're two different things. Often the most dangerous man in the room is the quietest man in the room. You can't be a good man, a fully good man, if you're not a dangerous man. All right? To be good is to do good to people, and sometimes doing good to people is protecting those people. It's protecting those people, protecting those around us, all right? Third, be educated. Listen, you want to know how to be a man among men? You start following and reading and listening to guys like Jocko Willett, Jordan Peterson, these guys, and start learning.
Exactly.
And start learning, start reading, and just the brain is a muscle, and like any muscle, the more you work it, the stronger it becomes. And lastly, be wise. Now, wisdom, it's a lifetime of study, wisdom is. And wisdom's not what you know. Wisdom is knowing how to apply what you know. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is classified as a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad.
Right. Yeah. All right, y'all, hold on. That's our motivation for the day. All right. Now, let's look at some personality stuff. I know Psych to Go got it. But, let's see. Personality quiz. Well, types. Let's look at the different types. I think we've seen this before, but we're going to watch it again.
The Myers-Briggs personality test is one of the most popular and well-known personality tests out there. It divides people into 16 types, ranging from the most rare, the INFJ, representing only 1.5% of the population, to the most common, the ISFJ, which makes up about 14% of the population. Today on Charisma, we're going to help you figure out what your Myers-Briggs personality type is. Before we get into the 16 types, let's take a look at how the test categorizes people according to 4 dimensions. Dimension 1, introversion versus extroversion. This dimension refers to how people derive energy. Introverts get energy from being alone, while extroverts become energized from their external environment, which usually means being around other people. Dimension 2, intuition versus sensing. This looks at how people view the world around them. Those with intuition are imaginative and focus on ideas and abstract concepts. Those with sensing pay more attention to logic, facts, and practicality. Dimension 3, thinking versus feeling. This component looks at how people make decisions. Those with a thinking dimension make decisions with their head, while those with a feeling dimension make decisions with their heart. And lastly, Dimension 4, judging versus perceiving. This last dimension looks at how others see you. Do you come across as organized and logical? If so, you might have a judging quality. If people see you as being spontaneous and flexible, you might be categorized as perceiving. Now that you have an overview of each category, let's dive into the types.
Let's go.
Grammarly's proactive, automatic writing suggestions are great, but sometimes you just want to tell Grammarly how to.
Information on
Number 1, ENTJ, the commander. If you love nothing more than the feeling of accomplishment, uniqueness, and flexible, you might be categorized as perceiving. Now that you have an overview of each category, let's dive into the types. Number 1, ENTJ, the commander. If you love nothing more than the feeling of accomplishment, you may be an ENTJ. This personality type excels at creating a vision and then executing that vision to the very end. Because of this, ENTJs are often known for their ability to accomplish anything they put their mind to. And as indicated by their commander nickname, ENTJs also make great leaders because of their charisma and natural authority. Number 2, ISTJ, the inspector. Some of the most successful leaders and innovators throughout history have been ISTJs, including Warren Buffett, J.D. Rockefeller, and Queen Elizabeth II. This is because
Oh, come on, don't buffer on me. Warren Buffett on me. That's crazy.
leaders and innovators. Number 2, ISTJ, the inspector. Some of the most successful leaders and innovators throughout history have been ISTJs, including Warren Buffett, J.D. Rockefeller, and Queen Elizabeth II. This is because ISTJs are known for being methodical, thorough, and dependable. If you're an ISTJ, you'll achieve your goals no matter what gets in your way through calm, steady progress. You also have a strong respect for tradition and law and order, which you may bring to both your career and your personal relationships. Number 3, ENTP, the debater. Do you have a secret, or not so secret, rebellious side? Do you love engaging with others through debate? If this sounds like you, it's a sign you might be an ENTP. If you're an ENTP, you'll likely have opinions about just about everything and not be afraid to voice them. In fact, you love nothing more than a great debate, even if your opinion is the odd one out. Being a rebel, you're not afraid to go against the status quo, and are even less afraid to argue your reasoning as to why. Number 4, ISTP, the crafter.
Hey, I like that.
Are you someone who values learning through hands-on experience? If so, you might be an ISTP. This type often ends up in a career path that allows them to employ their problem-solving abilities like engineering, science, or construction. But your desire for hands-on experience doesn't only extend to the workplace. You also like to experience the world directly in your free time, often through adventure or thrill-seeking behavior. You might be drawn to skydiving, bungee jumping, surfing, or another activity that helps you get your adrenaline up. Number 5, ESTP, the persuader. Are you outgoing, logical, and a quick decision maker? If so, you might be an ESTP. Because you're action-oriented and very sociable, you are likely skilled at professions like sales, where you can make use of your gregariousness and ability to thrive in a fast-paced environment. You don't spend a lot of time overanalyzing a situation and don't make decisions based on emotion. This allows you to be an efficient problem solver and someone who's not only great at, but enjoys putting out fires. Number 6, ISFJ, the protector. If you're known as being someone who stands up for those you love, you might be an ISFJ, otherwise known as the protector or the defender. If someone you know gets hurt, you'll jump to help them, even sacrificing your own needs for those you love. Because of this, ISFJs are often thought of as being selfless. But this isn't because you want a pat on the back or praise for your behavior. It just genuinely makes you feel good to care for others. Number 7, INTJ, the architect. Otherwise known as the mastermind, INTJs are incredibly logical and strategic in their way of approaching the world. If you're an INTJ, you have high expectations of not only yourself, but also those around you. Good enough doesn't cut it for you. You expect excellence. While this can sometimes be taken to an extreme and lead to harmful levels of perfectionism, most of the time it means that INTJs find success in whatever area they pursue. In fact, INTJs are some of the highest earners out of all of the Myers-Briggs personality types. Number 8, ESTJ, the director. What do George Washington, Judge Judy, Michelle Obama, and Margaret Thatcher have in common? They're all ESTJ personality types. As you can see, this personality type, also known as the director, makes great leaders. This is due to their ability to get things done quickly and efficiently and their skill in managing others. So if a friend has ever joked that maybe you should run for political office, it might be a sign that you're an ESTJ.
Thinking about starting to run on the treadmill again. I need to drop my belly fat.
So?
Yeah, no, that's total B.
Number 9, INFP, the mediator. Do you spend much of your time daydreaming, coming up with inventive inner worlds and stories? If so, you might be an INFP, incredibly imaginative. INFPs have rich inner lives, and if you're an INFP, you love spending time in this inner world. Look no further than at some of the most famous INFPs like J.K. Rowling or William Shakespeare to understand how vibrant an INFP's inner world can be. Your creativity, however, is not a means of escaping from reality. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's instead derived from a need for a higher calling or purpose, which you communicate through your creativity.
Right.
Number 10, ISFP, the artist. Like INFPs, ISFPs are also highly creative and have rich imaginations. Where they differ from INFPs, however, is in their sensing dimension. This means that ISFPs are more present-focused, whereas INFPs are more focused on the future. Because of this, if you're an ISFP, You'll be more focused on how to extract value from the present moment rather than from the future. You might, for instance, spend extra money on an experience like a concert or an art show instead of investing it. To you, it's much better to enjoy the present moment rather than stress about future events that may or may not happen. Number 11, ENFP, the champion. While they're certainly capable of accomplishing big goals, ENFPs are nicknamed the champion for their ability to help others realize their goals. Often motivational speakers, life coaches, or teachers, ENFPs find purpose through helping others succeed. And what's more, if you're an ENFP, you're naturally great at this because you're gifted with the ability to be organically inspiring and motivating without seeming like you're trying too hard.
Right.
Number 12, INTP, the thinker. Adept problem solvers. INTPs try to organize and make sense of the world through their logical side. If you're an INTP, you'll likely prefer time to yourself where you can be alone with your thoughts. You enjoy problem solving and because of your thinking dimension, believe that problems are best solved with logic rather than emotion. Because
a little bit of both.
INTPs often excel in...
Now, I ain't gonna lie, you can solve problems you cannot solve problems without using both your logic and your emotions. You need them. That's why you got them.
Positions that require the ability to problem solve, like science or engineering. Number 13, ESFJ, the caregiver. Are you always trying to figure out how to bring more harmony to your environment? Are you great at resolving conflict amongst others and getting people to work together? You may be an ESFJ. The reason you're so good at bringing harmony to an environment, whether that's a contentious work meeting or an awkward social gathering, is because of your hyper-awareness of not only the feelings of others, but how their feelings are interpreted by the people around them. This allows you to pinpoint others' needs and then work to make sure they're being met. Number 14, ESFP, the performer. Do you thrive in the spotlight? Are you known as the one who always has the best stories and is the best at telling them? If so, you might be an ESFP. This type is nicknamed the performer for a reason, as they often draw to entertainment professions like acting and music. However, despite their love of being the center of attention, this doesn't mean that ESFPs are self-centered or unaware of others' feelings. In fact, ESFPs are quite the opposite, as they're known for being incredibly caring and sensitive to the feelings of others. Number 15, INFJ, the advocate. One of the rarest personality types, INFJs are often known for having contradictory personality characteristics. They are logical, yet highly emotional, imaginative, yet also very analytical. And despite their perfectionist natures, they can come across as very laid back. What is consistent about them, however, is their desire to better the human race. Famous INFJs include Mohandas Gandhi, Jane Goodall, Florence Nightingale, and Eleanor Roosevelt, all of whom are advocates for improving the world around them. So,
wouldn't this just be like self-determining, or how would you do?
You're drawn to careers like social work or medicine because this provides you with the ability to help people, you might be an INFJ. Number 16, ENFJ, the giver. The counterpart to the rarest Myers-Briggs type, the INFJ, is the ENFJ. The ENFJ differs from the INFJ in their extroverted dimension or their need to get energy from others rather than time by themselves. Their similarities, however, lie in their caring nature and desire to help make the world a better place. If you're an ENFJ, you're likely an attentive, natural leader because your passion to improve the world naturally inspires those around you. Speaking of those around you, have you ever wondered if you're smarter than the people around you?
No. Who cares? So my question for the Briggs-Myers personalities that they just listed is, what do? You take the test? You take a test, or I'm pretty sure you do, and you just answer the questions. So now my question to, or my challenge to my viewers today is that, couldn't you just be any personality? Put my glasses on. You could be any personality. You could change your personality today. I don't really believe in no motion at all. Like, everybody's changing, everybody's doing something as far as motion. So staying as one personality is only because you want to. And then again, unless you study this stuff or look at this stuff, you don't know them names. Or if you watched Expansion Pack today, you don't know the names for it. You just are who you are, and your personality is what it is. So with that being said, I want to look into something deeper. I want to look a little deeper into that. Changing your personality.
Looking for a way to take better notes? Meet Remarkable Paper Pro. Organize your thoughts with
Getting a personality is like getting into Area 51 if the security guard was Helen Keller. It's really easy. Think about how easy it was when you were a kid. Your entire personality would be like Harry Potter, knowing frog facts and being good at Connect 4. And that was just how it was. An adult comes up to you and starts a conversation, and within 40 seconds, they know you as the Harry Potter Connect 4 frog kid. But now for some reason, you can't help but feel boring, because after the 82nd time in a row of not being able to name a single one of your interests and hobbies when asked, it might start to feel like you just don't have any. But in fact, getting a personality is way simpler than advice on the internet makes it seem. Most people say, be yourself. But that's just extrovert propaganda, since extroverts can be interesting just by existing and using social wizard tactics that an introvert may know about, but just by existing, and using social wizard tactics that an introvert may know about but can never execute. So unless you're willing to switch sides, your next option is to go to Google, where you'll be directed to ads for personality tests, books to read, and advice to join a pottery class. Right. So here's the real answer. Personality can literally just be boiled down to the first few standout things people think of when they think of you. That kid who pushed you over on the playground in kindergarten? Mean. Sore loser. Always talks about WWE. That guy in cargo pants with exotic snakes who came to your school assembly to tell you snake facts? Cool. Dresses like Steve Irwin. Snake guy. Elon Musk. Rich. Eccentric. That's it. Adele. British. Good at singing. And probably really friendly. You'll notice that the more clear, memorable traits you can associate with someone, the more personality they'll seem to have. Right. Now, what does that mean for you? It means that no matter how many cool trips you go on to other countries, or how many books you read, or how many pottery classes you take, none of these things by themselves will give you a personality. At least, not in the way you care about. What you care about is seeming interesting to people, having stuff to talk about, and having people remember things about you. And there's one easy way to do this. It's called the spike method. This is actually a trick used in college admissions to help regular students get into Ivy Leagues without needing to donate a building. So let's say you like cleaning. Yeah, cleaning. It's just an example. Trust me for a second. You think cleaning is relaxing. You think it's interesting. Now, imagine you spend a decent amount of time every day cleaning, learning about cleaning methods, reading up on the latest cleaning lore, watching cleaning videos, maybe even save up to get a pressure washer and the dirt on people's driveways for money. Literally in less than a month, you'll have put more experience into cleaning than 99% of people will ever have in their lifetime. Which means the next time you meet someone, you will be known to them as the cleaning expert. That might not sound exciting, but watch this. So what do you do for fun? Oh, I'm really into cleaning. I've learned so many cool things the average person doesn't know. Oh, like what? You want to know the truth about robot vacuums? I've been feeling kind of bored lately. Not much to do. I can bring my pressure washer to your house and we could shoot the gunk off your driveway. Wow, that sounds pretty cool actually. What are you doing this weekend? I don't know, I'm probably gonna fold my clothes using the world's fastest folding method. That exists? Yeah, wanna learn it? Now, I know what you might be thinking. That's not an interesting hobby. No one's gonna care.
Hold up.
Interesting hobby. No one's gonna care.
Right.
So just replace cleaning with whatever you find interesting and run with that. Don't worry about being boring, because whatever you become the expert in, you don't have to talk about that thing all the time. That thing just gets your foot in the door. So instead of just having to introduce yourself the same boring way as everyone else, you can get people to actually stop and listen to you. And then you could have normal conversations about how the subscribe button looks really enticing sometimes. So again, step 1, find something that interests you, no matter how weird it is. Step 2, gain experience in it until you know slightly more about it than most people do. Step 3, when introducing yourself to people, talk about this thing. Step 4, there's no step 4. It's that easy. Fun fact, college admissions officers are literally paid to identify applicants who have cool personalities. When they discover that you're better than 99% of people at something obscure, like cleaning, they call it, well, a spike, because it sticks out. Which is why the college essays with the highest success rate are always about some super niche thing, like competitive knitting or the medical applications of Tetris. Now, important disclaimer, competitive knitting or the medical applications of Tetris. Now, important disclaimer, you can truly pick anything you want as your spike, but you gotta talk to people about it in a way they can understand. Let's say you spent a month becoming an expert in Minecraft. That's valid, but no one will care if you go straight into talking about how you beat the game without touching the ground. It's impressive, but the majority of people don't know how Minecraft works, and that there was ever a way to beat the game in the first place.
Right.
I know, right? Like, it's 2024. How do you not know? Instead, explain what Minecraft is, how you got into it, how you beat it, and then explain how you did it without touching the ground. Despite what you might think, people will actually be patient to listen to any topic as long as they can understand it. The second you start using big words and niche terms to sound smart, that's actually when people stop listening. Which is why when Bill Nye explains volcanoes to you, it's interesting. But when someone with a PhD in volcano science explains them, you start wondering halfway through if they're even a real person. So yeah, hopefully that was easy to understand. I'll be taking donations in the form of subscribes to fund the next video.
That's my man. So basically, be an extrovert.
Now
get a
you can
hobby,
beat the
talk to people. Got it. All right. Coping with your personality. Yeah. Let's see. Oh no, not about BPD. Let's look at this.
Have you ever wondered how your childhood experiences shape your personality as you grow up? This question has been asked by psychologists since the dawn of psychology, and it's up for debate even today. But when it comes to childhood trauma, it's clear that the hardships of childhood make you into the person that you are today. Emotional or physical trauma can shape the way you think, the way you behave, your personality traits, and even make you prone to some serious mental illnesses. So here's how childhood trauma could shape your personality. Number 1, you become a perfectionist. Are you a perfectionist with impossibly high standards? But do you feel like your perfectionism is holding you back, making you anxious and stressed all the time? According to research published this year in the Journal of Research and Personality, your childhood trauma may have something to do with it. The connection between childhood trauma and perfectionism happens when your parents set high expectations and demand everything to be just perfect. They don't accept a B+, you have to get an A. They don't care if you've already done your homework, you have to study for a few more hours. They don't care if you want to be an artist, you must go to law school. Your hobbies are not up to their standards, your room is never clean enough, you didn't do your chores exactly how they like them done. Were your parents like this? If so, you surely understand the exhaustion that comes from never feeling good enough for your parents. As you try to keep up with their demands, this way of thinking becomes a part of you and shapes your personality when you grow up. If you feel like something isn't perfect, you get overwhelmed with anxiety, and sometimes this can lead to symptoms of depression because you never seem to be satisfied in life. Number 2, you may develop an eating disorder. Sometimes your mental trauma can express itself through your body. Several studies found a link between anorexia or binge eating disorder and childhood emotional trauma. You may be especially vulnerable to developing an eating disorder if your parents focus too much on your body and looks in general. But it's not always just about looks. For trauma survivors, eating disorders may become a mechanism for coping with negative emotions they experience. Through unhealthy eating habits or by controlling your weight, you may feel like you're finally gaining control over something in your life. You may feel like your whole life is out of your hands, but at least you still have ownership over your body. You may also indulge in emotional eating. This is when food becomes your best friend, and you turn to it when life gets you down. But no matter how good it may feel at the moment, disordered eating just adds to your trauma in the end. Number 3, you sometimes act childish. Do you sometimes act a little too childish? Trauma can sometimes make you stuck in your childhood. All those feelings that you may experience, shame, guilt, humiliation, fear, pull you back and sometimes make you terrified of being an adult. Maybe you feel like you can't make decisions for yourself, or like you're not capable of handling adult stresses, like going to work, paying the bills, handling chores, and so on. This can make you feel so overwhelmed that you may turn to your inner child for help. This is called age regression, and it's a psychological defense mechanism where you return to some childlike behaviors to help you cope. This can include baby talk, throwing temper tantrums. This is called age regression, and it's a psychological defense mechanism where you return to some childlike behaviors to help you cope. This can include baby talk, throwing temper tantrums, using stuffed animals to self-soothe, and so on. While age regression can be a symptom of some serious mental disorders, sometimes you may temporarily regress in a response to a stressful event or when triggered by a memory or a traumatic event. It can be difficult to cope with because people may see you as childish and immature, but it's important to remember that you're still capable of living your life to the fullest. Number 4, you develop an insecure attachment. Finally, we can't talk about the effects of childhood trauma if we don't mention the attachment theory. According to the attachment theory, when you were a child, your way of thinking was shaped depending on how your parents treated you. If your parents were loving and caring, you learned that you can trust people to be there for you. You learned that you are someone deserving of love. Then this is called a secure attachment. But if your parents ignored you, neglected you, what if they didn't respond to your crying and pleas for help? Then you may have developed an insecure attachment. That means that now you have feelings of low self-worth. You think other people are not trustworthy, or you have a strong fear of people rejecting you. There are 3 types of insecure attachment, and each one describes how today you may feel towards yourself and others. The first is anxious or preoccupied. If your attachment style is anxious, you might have low self-worth. You feel hurt and unlovable, or like there's something wrong with you. But at the same time, you crave love and attention. You're strongly afraid of being abandoned, and you'd do anything to get approval from someone who means a lot to you. Next is avoidant or dismissive. People don't always have a bad self-image, even if they survived childhood trauma. If your attachment style is avoidant, you may see yourself as strong and independent, but you can't say the same for other people. Because your parents treated you so poorly, you may have decided that people are just bad in general. So now you don't want to be around anyone. You feel like you don't need friends or a relationship. You don't want to share your feelings or be intimate with anyone. And lastly, there's disorganized or fearful avoidant. Most people with this attachment style had parents who were hot and cold. One moment, everything was fine. The next, they're showered with insults or they're being yelled at. Did something similar happen to you? If so, now you're not sure how to react and how to behave. Maybe you do want to be close to others, but you're afraid at the same time. What if they start mistreating you out of the blue? With this attachment style, your self-image may also be unstable as well. You're not sure who you even are, let alone what to think of yourself. So, how did your childhood experience shape?
Well, that's a question for you to think of on your own. The answer to that. How did your personality shape you? All right. Now, all right. Coping with your personality. Understanding your partner's personality. It's a cult of personality. Cult of personality. All right. Never heard these before.
When I entered the relationship that I'm currently in, a big green flag was early on within the first.
We ain't subscribed.
Many people, after they've been in a couple for some living room, or never wants to go on camping holidays, or plays tennis every Wednesday evening no matter what, or doesn't like Moroccan food, or doesn't share their enthusiasm for 19th century Russian novels, or has a habit of adding actually to every second sentence when it's actually redundant. As the list gets longer, they sigh. They still love their partner, and they long to be happy together. It's just that it seems impossibly complicated to make this relationship work. What's driving the frustration is not that they've sadly fallen for an idiot as a mate. It's rather that we have all inherited needlessly complicated ideas of what a relationship is supposed to be for. We are told that love is meant to involve the almost total merger of two lives. We expect that a loving couple must live in the same house, eat the same meals together every night, share the same bed, go to sleep and get up at the same time, only ever have sex with, or even sexual thoughts about each other, regularly see each other's families, have all their friends in common, and pretty much think the same thoughts on every topic at every moment. It's a beautiful vision, but a hellish one too, because it places an impossibly punitive burden of expectation on another human. We feel the partner must be right for us in every way, and if they're not, has to be prodded and cajoled into reform. But there is another perspective. Relationships don't have to be so complicated and ambitious if we keep in view what in the end actually makes them fulfilling. If we boil matters down, there might really just be three essential things that we want from a lover. Firstly, kindness. A partner who is gentle with our imperfections and can good-humouredly tolerate us as we are. Secondly, shared vulnerability. Someone with whom we can be open about our anxieties, worries, and the problems that throw us off balance. Someone we don't have to put on a good front for. Someone around whom we can be weak, vulnerable and honest, and who will be the same around us. Thirdly, understanding. Someone who is interested in and can make sense of certain obscure features of our minds, our obsessions, preoccupations, and ways of seeing the world, and whom we are excited to understand in turn. If we have these three critical ingredients to hand, we will feel loved and essentially satisfied, whatever differences then crop up in 100 other areas. Perhaps our partner's friends or routines won't be a delight, but we will be content. Just as if we lack these emotional goods and yet agree on every detail of European literature, interior design and social existence, we are still likely to feel lonely and bereft. By limiting what we expect a relationship to be about, we can overcome the tyranny and bad temper that bedevils so many lovers. A good, simpler, yet very fulfilling relationship could end up in a minimal state. We might not socialize much together. We might hardly ever encounter each other's families. Our finances might overlap only at a few points. We could be living in different places and only meet up twice a week. Conceivably, we might not even ask too many questions about each other's sex life. But when we would be together, it would be profoundly gratifying because we would be in the presence of someone who knew how to be kind, vulnerable, and understanding. A bond between two people can be very deep and important precisely because it's not played out across all practical details of existence. By simplifying and clarifying what a relationship is for, we release ourselves from overly complicated conflicts and can focus on our urgent underlying needs to be sympathized with, seen, and understood.
Deciding whether to stay in or leave a relationship is one of the trickiest and most consequential decisions we can face. Our stay or
I wanted to see that next one that came after that, but oh well. Let's look at this real quick.
Stop researching with ChatGPT. Its information is not reliable.
We've just launched a special membership to our YouTube channel. Sign up today for a host of unique benefits, including monthly discount codes for our online shop, custom wallpapers, badges and emojis, as well as an exclusive chance to vote on topics for future films you'd like us to make.
The best thing about physical maturity is that it's very easy to spot. We can so easily tell when someone has another decade of growth to emotional, can coexist with all the trappings of adult life and a confident and knowledgeable manner. It may be a long time into a love affair or a working relationship before we realize that we are unwittingly dealing with an emotional infant. It pays, therefore, to try to arrive at a few general guidelines for how an emotionally immature person can be spotted and, if necessary, escaped from very fast. Here are some of the lines that emotionally immature people have a tendency to come out with in conversation, and that should, at the very least, set alarm bells ringing loudly. I'm not so good at spending time on my own.
Yeah.
What separates the mature from the immature is perhaps more than anything else a capacity for being on their own, without distraction and thinking about who they are and what they've experienced. The mature person can allow themselves to examine and, as it were, feel their own feelings, even when these are very difficult and hugely unwelcome. They can stomach an encounter with their own rage, their own envy, their own shame. They don't have to do what the immature person is constantly compelled and being on their own, without distraction and thinking about who they are and what they've experienced. The mature person can allow themselves to examine and, as it were, feel their own feelings, even when these are very difficult and hugely unwelcome. They can stomach an encounter with their own rage, their own envy, their own shame. They don't have to do what the immature person is constantly compelled to do. Find someone or something else to prevent them from any risk of understanding their own mind. I don't really remember much about my childhood. There are very few childhoods in which difficult things didn't unfold. Without anyone meaning for this to happen, with the best intentions, children's development gets impeded and bruised. What counts, therefore, isn't that someone had a happy childhood. Almost no one on the planet did entirely. But that a person should have a calm and insightful view of what their childhood was actually like, in its good and bad aspects. An inability to remember much about the past doesn't indicate that it was idyllic or just a long time ago, just that it hasn't begun to be processed, and that is a red flag. I've never really thought about that before. Emotionally immature people have great difficulties with conversations that require them to draw on a knowledge of their own enthusiasms, sorrows, projects, and histories. So, as one sits with them over a drink and asks, for example, why their last relationship broke up, or what meaningful work constitutes for them, or what they regret most from their childhood, one has an above-average chance of hearing, perhaps quite sweetly, a reply along the lines that this is all too new and that they've never thought about this before. It isn't that the emotionally immature person is being cagey. They simply haven't properly inhabited, in its authentic pain and intensity, the life that they are actually leading. Everything is pretty good. It's fine. All is fine. It would be churlish to begrudge anyone a good mood. Nevertheless, the emotionally immature person isn't often just in a good mood. They are rigidly unable to enter a bad one. Everything is declared fine. Their parents, job, love affair, sex life, ambitions, because they have no resources for coping with anything that might be more nuanced and more real, that might entail anger, loss, confusion, or wayward desires. One comes away from a dialogue with such a person disoriented and lonely at the idea of sex life, ambitions, because they have no resources for coping with anything that might be more nuanced and more real, that might entail anger, loss, confusion, or wayward desires. One comes away from a dialogue with such a person in its authentic pain and intensity, the life that they are actually leading. Everything is pretty good. It's fine. All is fine. It would be churlish to begrudge anyone a good mood. Nevertheless, the emotionally immature person isn't often just in a good mood. They are rigidly unable to enter a bad one. Everything is declared fine. Their parents, job, love affair, sex life, ambitions, because they have no resources for coping with anything that might be more nuanced and more real, that might entail anger, loss, confusion, or wayward desires. One comes away from a dialogue with such a person disoriented and lonely at the idea that any life could be quite so cheerily one-dimensional. It isn't. That's just the way that the emotionally immature person is processing things. That's just a load of old psychobabble. As soon as a conversation threatens their emotional integrity, the emotionally immature person will shut it down with the imperious verdict that it is a piece of overcomplicated nonsense. They appeal to an idea of robust simplicity instead, as though the origins of all our problems might lie in thinking too much. It's the sort of attitude that might lead them to recommend that an anxious person pull of old psychobabble. As soon as a conversation threatens their emotional integrity,
This is my
the
favorite
emotionally
video
immature
we've ever watched on this show. I'm saving this.
person will shut it down with the imperious verdict that it is a piece of overcomplicated nonsense. They appeal to an idea of robust simplicity instead, as though the origins of all our problems might lie in thinking too much. It's the sort of attitude that might lead them to recommend that an anxious person pull themselves together, or to claim that a lot of mental distress comes from not getting out enough. But of course, none of this stems from confidence. It's a terrified way of blocking one's ears and saying no to truths and ideas that might hurt very much. Emotionally immature people can be extremely charming and at points entertaining to be around, but as a general rule, we would advise you to give them a very wide berth indeed, and aim to check in on them in about a decade or two. Life is in the end far too short, far too interesting, and far too lonely to spend very long around people who lack any interest in trying to be, where it counts, emotional grown-ups.
Yeah. All right, y'all. I hope y'all discovered some stuff about your own personalities and everything that you got in your life. Right now, I'm going to go and get up out of here on y'all for the day, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Again, Tech Tuesdays. This is DGTA TV. Thank you for watching. Peace. Help my mama find her wallet. Yeah.
I got nothing from working as hard as I could. Nothing happened from that. I'm gonna do the same thing again today, but I'm gonna try to go harder.
I will win, I will win, I will win. When that negative voice pops into your head and tells you that you don't have it in you, that you should give up and go back to your old ways, that you don't have any chance at succeeding, you must tell yourself that you will win, as conviction is one of the greatest powers that you possess.
But if you want to see if you're a brave person, what they call the 4 o'clock in the morning courage, wait when things go completely to pieces, when things are the worst, when